Hey everybody, my name is James Hill and I'm going to be going through the Rishab Poison Fire Druid build that I've been working on for the Mid and Excel forum. I'm going to go through a bit of playstyle kind of stuff as well as what sort of stats, skills, and sort of item and gear pickups you should have at different stages of the game to make this build work. I have the tendency to just ramble on, so I'm going to try to keep this short. Basically, this is a caster build, and this build excels because it has a lot of damage output. Survivability is sort of 50-50, but the build's ability to farm areas such as Tran is incredibly great, to say the least. This build has, at its latest stages, something along the lines of, let's see, let me hit a barrier. Something along the lines of like 170k defense. You can get that probably up to like 200k, as well as like as much DR as you can possibly get your hands on, which is, in my case, roughly around 20%-ish. I mainly use Plague Avatar for the poison damage output, and because we are using the sigil here, the poison duration actually stacks in the tooltip, so it's actually a bit lying here. The damage is not 27k. It's roughly a bit more than 19k, but this sort of poison damage is all over time. I'm using Rain of Fire, which is 4.8k. That's pre-buffs or anything like that, pre-Acid Fiend aura or anything. I've also been recently experimenting with using Elemental instead of Rain of Fire, which also outputs a lot of damage, especially considering the fact that Rain of Fire is maxed while Elemental is actually just, I've spent only 1 point on it. If you want to run this build, you could experiment a bit, maybe try Elemental instead of Rain of Fire, together with Plague Avatar. You could also go for the cold build, which is the Freezing Gale or the Hunting Banshee. But in general, I tend to use these two skills when I farm. This build is an incredibly good build for farming. You can also get a whole lot of charms. I've almost done every single charm so far on my own in 1P mode. What else? Some areas this build struggle with, for example, Duncraig, but that's fine. Every build has its weakness. Let me go through a little bit of play style here. Generally speaking, casters sort of stand back and sort of cast, but because this character is so squishy with very little defense, what you want to do is basically keep casting your summons in front of you as you walk in order to bait the enemies into the summon and cast on top of your summons. That way the summon can sort of work as a meat shield for you. I see a lot of players who are using this build sort of not do that. They instead jump in head first, sort of take some damage and start ticking down. Instead, what you should do is actually just walk forward, summon, and cast your spells on top of your summons. And that way you could actually just sort of protect yourself somehow. You could also cast in sort of 180 degrees around you in order to protect yourself. Rain of Fire as a skill is not very good against certain mobs because high mobility mobs will have the ability to escape this, or sort of teleportation mobs such as Ubers or Harpies or what have you. That's why Plague Avatar is a really good spell because it covers a wide or a big AoE. Elemental in this case, if you're going up against, let's say, Fawns, it's a much better spell than Rain of Fire. You probably want to max that instead, and you can use that in sort of all directions to protect yourself. So that's generally the play style, sort of summoning cast on top. When it comes to farming, let's go House of Dead here. Let's summon, let's use our buff, and let's also use the Shamanka buff that we have here. Generally speaking, your damage will be roughly around this area, 33k with a sigil sort of thingy, and 6.5 roughly fire. You can pump that a lot by using proper jewels and not MF gear. Currently, I'm using a lot of MF gear. Crafted gear, for instance, this gloves give sort of 100 MF and a little bit of other goodies together with Zod crafted jewels. You could use a lot of other things. For instance, if you're if you're up against an area that requires high poison damage, you can use Scale of the Drake, which provides us with minus 35% enemy poison resistance, which is basically good pierce. You could use that, and you could add a lot of poison-related jewels. This armor is more like geared toward fire spell damage than poison spell damage because it has the minus fire resistance and the fire spell damage, and that's why you could add a lot more sort of fire crafted jewels into this one. Generally speaking, gear-wise, you'd want a crafted staff because these spawns with 13 to Druid skill level. They spawn with incredibly high poison spell damage, such as, in this case, 69% and 39% fire. They also, they take the double orb effect, so you could actually emote with a lot of facet cost rate. So this one is 90%. And basically, you don't have to worry about, sort of hitting your facet cost rate breaking points. Any remaining facet cost rate that you need to add or facet hit recovery, you do that with jewels in your remaining sort of socket places, as well as the charms you gather along the way. I'm using a rare ring that I find until I find witchcraft, which I have unfortunately not been able to find yet. This amulet I found, which is really great, minus poison resistance, poison spell damage. When I go up against Uber, I use something like that Tesseract, which is a realm-only item as far as I know. It sort of provides you with a lot of minus enemy resistance as well as elemental damage. What else do we have here? The best helm I could find for this kind of build is actually a crafted Druid helm. Mainly because they spawn with 5 Druid skill level. They sometimes spawn with a lot of faster hit recovery as well, a lot of damage, a lot of minus resistance. It's a mixed bag of goodies that is extremely, extremely good. I have not been able to find any better helm basically than the crafted ones. Ashera's armor is a pretty good belt pickup because of damage reduction and spell damage it provides as well. And I'm using just the Off Megalith boots for the damage reduction as well as the 1-to-all skill. I use Clawfit when I need to buff before I go into an Uber area, as well as Lamha when I'm against Ubers instead of the MF gloves. And all of these have basically Zod jewels in them, with various modifiers in order to hit the breakpoints as well as some other goodies. That's in general, basically all you need for this build. Just a few crafted items, and you're good to go. You don't need this or this. What you need is basically to craft your own items and go from there. So it's an extremely cheap build, especially for those on single player. So that's basically the general setup here. Let's go into an area like TA and see what we can find. Now you'll notice here that I actually take quite a lot of damage when I try to rush through areas. So I'm hoping here to display a bit of what you should and shouldn't do. So I'll probably die a few times on purpose here to show you exactly what you need to do and what you shouldn't do basically. So let's go here. Potions are very important for this build, mainly because you have low HP. You should be roughly around 10 to 12k HP, together with that amount of defense that we talked about earlier. Let's buff and go. Let's say you're going to start farming TA. You're going to notice that this opening in particular, because you don't have momentum yet, is extremely hard to walk in. You're going to take a lot of damage if you just walk through it. So you have to sort of summon, cast, and back, and heal with Pagan Rite until you gather some momentum. Once you do that, you got to watch out for the traps, of course. Let's see here, you clear it up, and then you can start, rolling with your momentum, basically. Always keep your summons up. So as you guys noticed, 10 of my summons just died straight away. Now that we have sort of stabilized the situation, we can just completely walk forward and push like this. And back up, summon, hit, summon, cast, back up, summon, cast, back up. You can be a bit more aggressive, but I'm trying to just show, generally speaking, what sort of play style you should have. And this way you could actually, basically because I'm running MF gear, I have roughly, I think, currently somewhere around 300 MF. I find about 20 to 30 uniques per TA run, mixed bag basically, tiered uniques as well as the sacreds. Just basically keep on doing this whole thing until you sort of finish the whole map, and you'll sort of gather all those uniques and be on your way. That's generally what I do in TA, and I run the whole place and sort of do my whole shenanigans. Well, let's talk a bit about Ubers and charms in particular. There are a lot of Ubers that this hero excels against. A lot of them that sort of cause some problem. Graxus, for instance, causes some problem because he's poison immune, and if you use your summons, he heals immediately by killing one of them. So it's extremely difficult to beat him without summons, especially the fact that Acid Fiends give you a lot of damage, so you want that. So you have to kite around for a long time until you sort of manage to kill him and get the charm. But it's very doable. I'll include, or I have already included in the guide, a bit of description about how you should tackle each and every one of these bosses. Let's see. In general, with heroics like Bull Prince or who else? Athula are very doable because you basically can just kite around in this large area, throw your spells and back up, and sort of summon and redo until you sort of kill the hero, kill the boss. Sometimes it's just you're gonna die. There is no way around it because you have very low armor and low DR, especially with the MF gear. So you're gonna die, and that is fine, especially if you're up against these heroics. In general, if you want to get the simple charms, it's really easy. Even areas like Odyssean or Wretched Sands or any of those late game movers, generally could just demolish them. I thought I was gonna do one of those in front of you guys, but I don't want to make this video way too long, so I'll probably sort of cut it short and add a few other Uber videos at the end of the guide. What else can we talk about here? Playstyle, charms and stats. Yes. So stat-wise, currently I have to respec because I've sort of gotten a lot of SIGs and since I spec'd last time and done all that kind of stuff. But generally, you want just enough strength to use your gear and everything else into energy. The idea here that I'm going for is have a few minus requirement jewels with Zod-crafted minus requirement jewels, so they give you both something like faster cost rate, faster hit recovery, minus requirement, and a bunch of spell damage. And use those on high strength items such as the light plate or the gauntlets if you're using that to lower their strength need, and then invest everything else into energy. 10% will give you diminishing returns if you add multiple ones of those add, maybe 1 or 2 in each item, and then invest the rest into energy. Talking about skills, Good Berry and Life Shield are your sort of holy grail here, these two. And as you can see, 13 out of 16, so I need to really respec in order to buff this character. I've been just lazy and haven't had the will to do it. 1 point into Force of Nature because it doesn't scale so well, but 1 point is definitely worth it. You could consider something like Fairy Fire, but in my opinion, it's not as good as 1 point of Force of Nature. Max the Acid Fiend, max the Plague Avatar, and either Elemental or Rain of Fire, whichever you prefer working. You could even go for the Cold build. I prefer the Fire build personally, and everything else into Poison Flash because it provides a major health bonus to Acid Fiends. 1 point of Metal because it actually breaks a lot of the enemy resistances. You're gonna notice sometimes that you have some poison immunity from metal, and that poison immunity is gone basically. And that's generally just about just sort of summon around you, cast on top of those summons to protect yourself, and keep on pushing, gain momentum, and sort of keep on going. What's this crap? I was going to say something about... Oh, right. The idea here is that because you are a caster and you want to be sort of far away, what will happen is that if you are in a public game, let's say you're decowing and there's like 8 people in there, everybody's casting spells, right? And people don't know sort of how to group up and let one person do the damage, because you could kill cows on 8 players alone, but people won't trust you to do that and they start spamming the spells. Plague Avatar has a tendency to sort of lag everything out. So if you're like in a decow game with like 8 people, use Rain of Fire instead, or the Elemental, because those lag a whole lot less, or basically the frame the frame update sort of provide you with way less lag if you use these fire spells instead of Plague Avatar. So you sort of mix these spells and try to cast maybe 1 Plague Avatar and then follow it up with a lot of Rain of Fire to get both damage sources in. And that's generally how you plow through that whole area. That's the play style in its entirety, basically. Just summon and sort of cast, mythal, summon. It would be also really good if you found a lot of reanimate. So here we have, for instance, I've put in reanimate a skeleton, 8%, as you can see at the bottom. What this will do is basically when you kill someone, you're gonna get a skeleton reanimate, which is really good in things like cow levels or in high monster density areas, because these become like sort of your flesh shield. Make sure to get a Mumu Gold, Fool's Gold, because with a good reanimate, of course. This is very, very important in my opinion. This is a bad one actually. I gave my good one to a friend, but just keep farming until you find a good one. You can actually solo Bull Prince with relative ease. Idle Advantage is extremely important because you get the increased overall speed in order not to waste any jewels. Just gather your basic charms. What I do is basically go get these charms, sell them, and then go get new ones. So that's why my inventory is not full with everything. I basically sold a whole lot of them. And that's just generally what you should do. Aim for around 250 to 300 MF with your MF gear. For your poison gear with the Scales of the Drake, aim for just a little bit. You don't even need MF actually when you're running that poison build, but I generally have something around 150 even in that build when I have the poison gear on. So that's that way I can guarantee some MF even when I'm running the full damage build. And that's basically it, honestly. You just sort of summon, cast, and apply your way through the whole area. So that's about it. Try this playstyle and see if that works better for you. And let me know how that works out in the comments. Hope you enjoyed this build. Cheers.